Console RPGs are some of the most powerful nostalgia in all of nerddom. They get that dopamine flowing and spark plenty of discussion and debate about which is best. And the NES is the one system I hear less about. It's usually the PlayStation 1 or the Super Nintendo. So these are the best RPGs for the Nintendo Entertainment System, why, and where to play them today. Let's get started. Number 10 on my list is Dragon Warrior 2. This was a follow-up, of course, to Dragon Warrior 1. It expanded on the ideas of the first game and the mechanics, allowing you to have more party members. The story is a direct sequel to the first, where you have to recruit fellow royalty from the surrounding kingdoms, descendants from the original hero from Part 1, to help fight against the new evil, Hargun. So go grab your cousins and stomp a mud hole into somebody if you have to.
Have you met Howard?
What, you gonna shoot me, huh? How?
It's a little grind heavy, but that's to be expected. The map seems much larger and the graphics are just generally better. I love the idea of recruiting descendants of the last hero to fight the new evil, but this RPG is not quite the best on the system for a few reasons. There is a steep difficulty curve farther along in the game, with some enemies that are able to just tear your entire party apart before you can really do anything. And the story itself, while again is neat, it's pretty simple as well. This game is available on Switch and PS4, and it may be part of that rumored upcoming trilogy we might be getting. That's exciting stuff there. Number 9 is Crystalis, otherwise known as Godslayer in Japan. You could probably see why I switched that up for an American audience. Whew.
That is heresy.
Crystalis is an action RPG for the NES, and it's among the best on the system. The game is post-apocalyptic, yet fantasy, and revolves around you saving the world from Dragon, the big baddie. Could be Dragon, whatever. The game features, of course, real-time combat. The environments in the game are varied and bright, colorful, beautiful, you name it. The visual style is just lovely. You collect different elemental types of swords to form the legendary sword, Crystalis, to stop Dragon, who bastardized science and magic. Now we have to stop him from bastardizing the rest of civilization. This game is available in the SNK 40th Anniversary Collection for Steam, Switch, and PlayStation and Xbox consoles. I don't think Crystalis is the best on the system, again, for difficulty spikes. Some weird puzzles along the way, and the controls can be a little clunky every once in a while. But it's loved by so many people, and I'm sure that you're going to love it too. Number 8, The Legend of the Ghost Lion, or Ghost Lion. Based on a movie that wasn't released in the US, Legend of the Ghost Lion follows a young girl whose parents disappear as she falls into a river looking for them. Now she must hunt for the legendary Ghost Lion to figure out what happened to her parents. The gameplay is interesting, to say the least. You don't earn experience from battles, but instead you collect items from dungeons that level you up. And really, the real experience are the friends that you met along the way, right? Grinding battles get you money that you use to upgrade your gear. You go town to town and dungeon to dungeon, leveling up and finding key parts necessary to progress the story and get closer and closer to discovering the whereabouts of your parents. This game is notorious for terrible cover art in the US. Ooh, that's bad. I have a soft spot for this game, and I got a little obsessed about it and made a video about it. If you want to check that out, I'll leave a link up for it here in the corner of the screen. I hope you'll enjoy it. It's a weird one, like me. It's obviously not the best RPG on the NES because of a few major problems. The difficulty spikes are wild. The plot is incredibly linear, and the combat is wildly repetitive. It's not a terribly hard game to get into, but once you're into it, it doesn't pull its punches. Unfortunately, this game really isn't available anywhere but through emulation or on the original hardware, and the original hardware is getting a little expensive. But should you get the opportunity to play it, I'd highly recommend it, just to see how odd it is. It is certainly different. Number 7, Dragon Warrior 3. Admittedly, this is the game on the list that I've played the least of, but there's a perfectly good reason. Before I tell you, let me point out that this game is here at 7 on this list because of this. I started playing the game recently, and I had trouble putting it down. It's actually really good. Dragon Warrior 3 is the natural follow-up to Dragon Warrior 1 and 2, as it's technically much more impressive, allowing you to have multiple characters, hire new characters, higher specific classes. There is more equipment and more spells. There is a day and night cycle. There's new statistics for party members. A vault for gold in case you die and want to preserve your shekels. The story follows the origin of the hero of legend from the original Dragon Warrior and how it all came to be. This game is expansive, to say the least, and to be honest, I'm sort of waiting on the HD 2D remake that was announced in 2021. The rumor is it will be called the Loto Trilogy and include the first 3 games, and that's really exciting. If you're less patient than I am, this game is available on the Switch and most modern consoles today. But if you can wait, it's going to be good. Number 6, Fire Emblem Shadow Dragon and the Blade of Light. This is kind of cheating because this is a Japanese game, but whatever. I just said NES games, and I'm just trying to give you good information. Don't attack. Well, you attack me in the comments, whatever. It's cool. Come at me, brother. This was where the famous Fire Emblem series started. This game helped pioneer tactical RPGs on consoles. Regarding the story, it's rather simple, but awesome anyway. You play as Marth, a prince who has been exiled and is coming back to reclaim the throne in his homeland from the evil dark sorcerer and his master. You spend the game finding a magic sword and the titular Fire Emblem, forming new alliances and preparing to face the bad guys. The big draw for this game is that, well, it's the beginning of the Fire Emblem series, and it still holds up as a fun tactical RPG. Move slowly around the battlefield and just freaking wreck stuff. Your enemies have to be like that guy from Austin Powers who's like, no! The issue with this game, and why it's not the best RPG on the NES, is that the systems, though pioneering and awesome for the most part, are still a little janky. They show their age. The battles can be a bit of a slow grind. This was all addressed more and more over the years, refining Fire Emblem into a masterpiece of a series that it is today. But at this point, it was still just a baby. And again, it wasn't available in the US on the NES, but it's now available on the Switch, and there was a physical edition released and an official translation. Again, it has a simple story, but hey, I'm into simple stories. It's good. If you got suggestions for other RPGs with simple stories, I'd like to know. Number 5, Zelda 2, The Adventure of Link. It's not as bad as people tell you it is. Really, I dare say it's sort of great. Zelda 2 is so different from the original, but I enjoy it much more than the original. The action RPG elements in this game, like leveling up through experience found or gained in battle, give purpose to combat. You're not just mowing down enemies for no purpose. It's rewarding. It's like an RPG. The adventure elements from Zelda are still there as you have to locate items and such to progress, but the side-scrolling and battling in this game is just much more difficult and I think much more fun. I find a difficult Zelda game refreshing. Again, I get why so many people hate this game, but the same thing that made this game great is the same stuff that makes Nintendo great. The risk and innovation that they just drag us along for. Zelda 2, I think, is the easiest in the Zelda franchise to argue as an RPG, and it does an amazing job of being an action RPG, and it gets my vote as the best action RPG on the NES. Sorry, Crystalis. The difficulty of the game is great for Zelda, but the frustration of it holds it back from being the best RPG on the system. Plus, would you forgive me if I made Zelda 2 the best RPG on the NES? Probably not. If you haven't played it in a while, forget the hate that you've heard or that you once had stored up in your heart toward this game. Open your mind to the possibility of a good game and play it on the Nintendo Switch online service. Give it another go. Number 4 might throw you for a loop here. Final Fantasy. Final Fantasy is where it all started for this series, of course. The original game is still a wonderful standard for RPGs. The story was much more complicated and mature than some of the other console RPGs at the time. It included a sprawling world and difficult encounters, the same spells and classes you've come to expect from Final Fantasy, along with the choice of party members. The game tells the story of a master evil that has created a time loop to allow immortality and the creation of monsters that bring chaos into the world through the use of the elemental crystals. Chaos. A prophecy tells of the Light Warriors that will save the day and fix this chaos.
When are we gonna fight Chaos?
And they do, by defeating Chaos.
All I care about is seeing Chaos dead.
There's time travel, elements, Ancient Evil. What more could you ask for, really? It's probably surprising to see this game so early in my list, as many would consider it one of the best RPGs for the NES, and I do too. But there were some issues with it. While the story was solid, gameplay was difficult at times, very difficult at times. Choosing a target that dies on the first hit will cause the rest of the party to just whiff their attacks if they are also attempting to hit that enemy. This would be remedied in future versions, but it was frustrating at the time on the NES. The classes are pretty unbalanced as well, with certain combinations being much more viable than others. You have the freedom of choice, but do you really? It's a great game, don't get me wrong, but I'd argue that there is better for the system. Final Fantasy is available as part of the Pixel Remaster on PC, Switch, PlayStation, and it's available on almost every platform as a standalone game. It has been ported a lot. Number 2 is a game that is near and dear to my heart. Sweet Home. Truly a spooky freaking game. This game captures, or well, creates the essence of survival horror. Considered the forerunner to Resident Evil, Sweet Home follows a group of journalists attempting to get some information about the Mamiya mansion. Soon they're trapped inside by a ghost and must try to survive. Characters can die easily in this game, and they have to be replaced with substitutes for their unique items. And when I say they die, like Fire Emblem die. There are quick time events, ghastly sprite work, and an excellent story to supplement these RPG elements. Everything in this game is just a wonder to behold. It's the sort of game that makes you go, I can't believe this came out on the NES. It is deeply stressful as permadeath lurks around every corner, and not just in battle. Or it could be a weak floorboard that just crumbles beneath your feet, and then you have to reach to save your friend or they die. It's crazy. There are only 2 reasons this game isn't the best RPG on the system. Number 1, the RPG aspect takes a bit of a backseat to the rest of the awesome systems. So it might be unfair to call it the best RPG on the system when RPG is, again, kind of on the back burner. And my second reason is simply that the next 2 games are absolute masterpieces. Oh my goodness. Unfortunately, Sweet Home is available only as emulation, Japanese physical copy, or reproduction NES cards. Me and my buddy actually used to make reproduction cards of this game. Pretty cool looking. Here, I'll show a picture here. It's hot. I like it. But yeah, Sweet Home is amazing. Play it, please. Number 2, Mother, or Earthbound Beginnings. This is probably the most disturbing of the games on the list of RPGs for the NES, despite Sweet Home for real. Like, even though Sweet Home is a horror game, this game is just nutty disturbing. It's the first game in the Mother series, and it is so deep with lore and story, and bursts at the seams with charm and character. One of the wildest things about this game is the focus on the kids to save the world and the apathy of the adults that inhabit the world. And then the background of the story is wild in itself, about a couple who disappeared and then the father comes back, and the wife was never heard from again. An alien who we later assumed to be Gygus from Mother 2 is spreading his influence of evil throughout the world, and it's up to you to stop him. This game teeters between local issues and global issues, showing us the relationship between the micro and the macro, and I'm getting ahead of myself here. Hold on. Mother is incredible. You owe it to yourselves to play it. If you'd like to hear more about this game, I did an entire video about it being disturbing, and I'll link it right here. I don't know that I've ever had a game make me feel so lonely. Oh, and I loved it. The only thing that brings this game down is an insane difficulty spike near the end of the game. Many enemies, regardless of your level, can still wipe out your entire party with ease, kind of like in Dragon Warrior 2. This is frustrating, of course, but seeing the game through is worth it. While you can get translated copies of this as a repro, it was only ever available in Japan physically. Most recently, it's now available on the Nintendo Switch Online services as Earthbound Beginnings. And finally, my argument for the number 1 RPG on the NES, and you might have guessed it at this point, as it wasn't mentioned before. Maybe you'll hear this and be like, well, that's crap. Either way, let me know in the comments. I really love discussing these things. It's fantastic. So the best RPG for the NES has to be the original Dragon Warrior, or Dragon Quest. That's just because it was one of the first console RPGs, I hear you say. Well, yeah, and while it's pioneering at least, that's not the reason that it's the best. Dragon Warrior propelled the genre forward and set a foundation for countless games to follow. The game's enduring appeal lies in its classic good versus evil storyline. It's just good old simplicity, where you're the hero saving the kingdom of Alefgard from the villainous Dragon Lord. The game features hidden treasures, a diverse world with dungeons and overworld exploration, which feeds into a thrilling sense of adventure. It's awesome just to look across the water from the first town and to see your destination, the last place you need to go. There's danger around every corner and there's no hand-holding. It's just go, save the kingdom, wander around and die if you must. Searching for the legendary hero's armor and sword in order to defeat the Dragon Lord is such a simple yet fulfilling quest. Dragon Warrior's 8-bit graphics and iconic soundtrack evoke a profound sense of nostalgia, while its accessible mechanics, after all you only have one character, ensure that it remains enjoyable for longtime fans and newcomers alike. Its enduring cultural impact, particularly in Japan where it became a cultural phenomenon, and its pivotal role in shaping the RPG genre solidified Dragon Warrior's status as a beloved classic in gaming history and the best RPG for the NES. Dragon Warrior, or Dragon Quest, is available on Switch and PS4, and it might be part of that upcoming rumored trilogy again. And boy, do I hope we get that trilogy. Again, the NES had some absolute bangers on it, despite it being not as famous as like the PS1 with RPGs or the Super Nintendo with RPGs. It still has a lot of great RPG value to offer people. I'd be happy to know what you think about the list and what you think about the entries on this list, and does my reasoning make sense to you? If it doesn't, whatever, comment. I appreciate you. Thank you so much, and I'll catch you in the next video.